Welcome, esteemed gentlemen. Ignore the quiet ones, and you'll soon hear the loudest lesson of your life. In a world that thrives on noise and constant validation, the Sigma male stands apart, a rare breed who doesn't beg for attention or crumble when it's denied. Ignoring a Sigma isn't just a casual oversight. It's a calculated move that shifts the balance of power in ways most people can't foresee. Here's a fact to chew on. Studies show that those who maintain emotional independence often emerge as the most influential in social dynamics. Now mix that with the razor-sharp intellect and unshakable confidence of a Sigma male, and you're in for a masterclass in the art of indifference. But let's be honest, if you think ignoring a Sigma male will make him chase after you, you might as well wait for your cat to bark. Because when it comes to the Sigma, silence isn't golden. It's his playground. Buckle up, because this is where the game gets interesting. Number 1. He leaves a void you can't fill. When a Sigma male decides to leave, he doesn't just walk away, he takes with him something intangible but deeply felt: his presence. It's not something you notice right away. At first you might think ignoring him worked, that he didn't care, or that he moved on easily. But over time, the void he leaves becomes impossible to ignore. It's not just the loss of his attention. It's the realization that his energy, his quiet confidence, and his enigmatic nature were irreplaceable. The thing about a Sigma is that he doesn't leave breadcrumbs. There's no trail to follow, no way to reconnect, and no way to fill the space he occupied. You'll replay conversations in your mind, trying to figure out when he decided you weren't worth his time anymore. You'll scroll through your phone, realizing he hasn't left a single message to cling to. His silence is louder than any confrontation, and it forces you to confront a truth that stings. He didn't need you, you needed him. What makes this void so haunting is that it's not about the typical what could have been scenarios. It's about realizing that you took something rare for granted. Someone who didn't need you for validation, who was content in his own world, but still chose to let you in. And now he's gone, without anger or bitterness, leaving behind nothing but a profound sense of what you lost. You might try to fill the gap with distractions, other people, or even attempts to reach out, but none of it works. His absence isn't just a reminder of him, it's a reflection of what you failed to see when he was there, and that's a void no one else can fill. Number 2, he doesn't chase, he replaces. A Sigma male lives by a simple, unshakable principle. His time and energy are too valuable to be spent on someone who doesn't reciprocate. If you treat him as an option, he'll see it as your loss, not his. The truth is, chasing someone who ignores him is beneath his character. It's not arrogance. It's a quiet, confident understanding of his own worth. He knows that no one is irreplaceable, including you. When he senses that he's being undervalued or sidelined, he doesn't lash out or beg for attention. Instead, he quietly recalibrates. He'll withdraw his focus, leaving you to wonder what happened, and shift his energy to someone who genuinely appreciates his presence. The switch is seamless, almost surgical, because Sigmas don't cling to emotional attachments that don't serve them. But here's the catch. The person who replaces you might not even be someone else. It could be a new project, a personal goal, or even deeper solitude. The Sigma doesn't fill emotional voids with distractions or rebounds. He replaces what no longer aligns with him with something or someone that elevates his life. This isn't a game or a tactic to make you feel bad. It's simply how he operates. He doesn't hold grudges or play mind games. He moves forward decisively and without hesitation. And by the time you realize he's gone, he's already found something far more fulfilling. What's most striking is that the replacement isn't about proving a point to you. It's about staying true to himself. He's not trying to make you jealous or regretful. He's just ensuring his life is filled with people and experiences that match his value. And once he replaces you, there's no going back. Number 3, he learns more about himself than you. When a Sigma male is ignored, it doesn't chip away at his confidence. In fact, it does quite the opposite. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt or seeking validation, he turns the experience inward, using it as a chance for reflection. To a Sigma, being ignored isn't rejection. It's an opportunity to refine his understanding of himself, his desires, and his boundaries. He doesn't waste time analyzing why someone chose to ignore him. Instead, he focuses on what the situation reveals about his own needs and priorities. Was he too generous with his time? Did he misread the person's intentions? Did he allow someone into his life who wasn't aligned with his values? These aren't questions of blame, but rather exercises in self-awareness. The Sigma doesn't dwell on the external actions of others. He uses those moments to gain sharper clarity about himself. Through this process, he becomes even more attuned to what he wants in his relationships and life. He learns to recognize red flags sooner, to invest in people who genuinely value him, and to let go of those who don't. This isn't about closing himself off or becoming cynical. It's about refining his inner circle to include only those who truly align with his path. The irony is that while the person who ignored him might assume they've diminished his confidence, they've actually helped him grow. Each instance of being overlooked sharpens his understanding of his own worth and strengthens his resolve to never settle for less. By the time he's done reflecting, he knows exactly what and who deserves his energy. He walks away from the experience not wounded but wiser, leaving everyone else to wonder how he keeps thriving. Number 4. He prioritizes his goals over you. For a Sigma male, life revolves around his goals, not the approval of others. His ambitions are the driving force behind everything he does, and no amount of ignoring, ghosting, or games will pull him off his path. If someone chooses to overlook or undervalue him, he doesn't see it as a challenge to win them over. Instead, he sees it as a sign to redirect his energy back to what truly matters, his purpose. When ignored, a Sigma doesn't sulk or seek validation. He shifts gears. That moment of neglect becomes fuel for his determination. It's almost as if ignoring him lights a fire under him, pushing him to accomplish even more. While others might crumble under the weight of rejection, he thrives in the silence, channeling his focus into building something greater, his career, his passion projects, his physical fitness, or his intellectual pursuits. This laser focus often leaves those who ignored him far behind, watching as he skyrockets toward his goals. The Sigma's success isn't about proving a point. It's simply the byproduct of his unshakable commitment to his own path. He understands that people come and go, but his aspirations and self-improvement are constants. What makes this dynamic so impactful is that the person who ignored him might expect him to linger or pine for their attention. Instead, they'll witness a transformation. He becomes sharper, more accomplished, and even less accessible. By the time they realize their mistake, he's so far ahead in his journey that catching up is impossible. In the end, the Sigma male's focus on his goals isn't just a defense mechanism, it's his way of thriving. Ignoring him doesn't weaken him, it only motivates him to succeed faster and leave those who underestimated him far behind. Number 5, he notices your subtle cries for attention. When someone tries to play the ignore game with a Sigma male, hoping to provoke a reaction, they're in for a rude awakening. The Sigma's sharp intuition and ability to read people mean he'll pick up on your subtle attempts to get his attention almost instantly. Whether it's a carefully crafted social media post, a pointed absence in conversation, or a sudden shift in behavior, he sees through it all with ease. The irony lies in how he responds, or rather, doesn't respond. Instead of giving you the reaction you're fishing for, he'll maintain his calm, collected demeanor and carry on as if nothing happened. His lack of response isn't accidental, it's intentional. He knows that by refusing to engage, he's not only protecting his energy, but also making you question the effectiveness of your strategy. What makes this dynamic so powerful is that the Sigma male doesn't just ignore the game, he flips it. Your subtle cries for attention, whether deliberate or unconscious, become irrelevant in his world. And while you're left wondering why your tactics aren't working, he's busy focusing on what actually matters to him, his passions, goals, and inner peace. Eventually, the tactic backfires. The more you try to get his attention, the more his indifference will sting. He won't argue, confront, or explain himself. He simply won't engage. Over time, the absence of his validation becomes impossible to ignore, and the regret sets in. The Sigma male's strength lies in his ability to see beyond surface-level games and remain unbothered. If you try to manipulate him into chasing you, you'll find yourself chasing the very thing you tried to control, his attention, which he gives only on his own terms. Number 6. He doesn't need closure, but you might. Closure is something most people crave, a final conversation, an explanation, or a sense of resolution to tie up loose ends. But for a Sigma male, it's unnecessary. He doesn't linger on what-ifs or demand answers. Once he decides to move on, it's not about unfinished business. It's about his inner clarity. He knows when something or someone no longer aligns with his values, and that's all the closure he needs. This detachment isn't coldness, it's efficiency. A Sigma won't waste energy rehashing situations that don't serve him. While others might replay conversations or demand explanations, he simply shifts his focus forward. His logic is simple. If it didn't work, it wasn't meant to. He doesn't dwell on the past or look for reasons to justify his decision. The irony is, while he moves on effortlessly, the other person is often left in emotional limbo. Without a dramatic goodbye or confrontation, they're left with nothing but questions. Why didn't he fight for this? What was he thinking? Was I the problem? The absence of closure becomes a haunting presence, and the realization that he's not coming back only deepens the regret. What makes this so impactful is the way it highlights the Sigma's emotional independence. He doesn't need validation, apologies, or explanations to find peace. His confidence and self-awareness allow him to let go without bitterness or resentment. But for the person on the receiving end, the lack of closure often creates a void that lingers far longer than any dramatic farewell would have. In the end, the Sigma's ability to move on without looking back isn't just a testament to his strength. It's a stark reminder that closure is often more about the person left behind than the one who walks away. Number 7. He stops being available. When a Sigma male feels ignored, he doesn't argue or beg for your attention. He simply vanishes from your life. The moment you treat him as a second thought, he stops being available in every way that mattered. He won't answer your late-night texts, won't be there to lend an ear when you're down, and won't put his plans on hold to accommodate you. He removes himself from your life so quietly and completely that you won't even realize it until it's too late. What makes this so striking is that he's not doing it to punish you. It's not about making a point or being petty. It's about preserving his energy. A Sigma values his time and effort too much to waste them on someone who doesn't appreciate them. When you ignore him, he sees it as a signal to withdraw, and once he makes that decision, there's no going back. This sudden absence creates a noticeable void. You might not feel it right away, but eventually it hits. When life gets tough, when you need advice, or when you simply crave the unique connection he offered, you'll reach out, only to realize he's no longer there. That quiet, steady presence you once took for granted is gone, and no one else quite fills the gap. The Sigma doesn't announce his departure, he just stops being accessible. By the time you realize what you've lost, he's already moved on, investing his energy into people and pursuits that reciprocate his value. And while you're left regretting how things played out, he's thriving in his newfound freedom, proving once again that he was never dependent on anyone else for fulfillment. Number 8. He turns the tables without saying a word. A Sigma male doesn't need to raise his voice or make a scene to turn the tables. His power lies in his ability to act with calm precision, leaving others to feel the impact of their own choices without him ever saying a word. When you ignore him, expecting him to chase or react in some dramatic way, he'll simply go silent, retreating into his world. But that silence isn't passive, it's purposeful. Over time, his actions, or lack thereof, will subtly shift the dynamic in ways you can't predict. He doesn't need to explain his departure or confront you about your behavior. Instead, he quietly moves forward, channeling his energy into things that matter to him. While you may expect him to be floundering or emotionally affected, the reality is that he's building, growing, and evolving. You won't see the moment when he starts thriving without you. It just happens. What stings the most is that by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. His indifference becomes a sharp reminder of how easily he moved on, something you didn't anticipate. You'll wonder when the shift happened, where he found the strength to move past you so effortlessly. The truth is, you never saw the full extent of his emotional detachment coming. His retaliation isn't about getting even. It's about him demonstrating that his peace, goals, and time are more important than anything else. He doesn't need to shout from the rooftops. His success and emotional independence are the loudest responses. And in the end, you'll be left with a quiet sting, realizing that while you were busy ignoring him, he was quietly turning the tables, leaving you to feel the consequences of your actions in silence. Number 9. He cultivates a scarcity mindset about himself. A Sigma male doesn't waste his time on people who don't value him. He has a deep understanding of his worth and treats his time, energy, and attention as limited resources. To him, these are things to be guarded and carefully allocated, not freely given to those who take them for granted. When you ignore him, you're not just losing access to someone who's emotionally independent and intellectually stimulating. You're deprioritizing yourself in his life. He doesn't hand out discounts on his attention, and once he realizes someone isn't treating him with the respect he deserves, they're instantly placed on the back burner. Sigmas don't need constant validation or a crowd of people around them to feel validated. They know their own value and operate on their own terms. When someone ignores or undervalues them, they don't chase after the situation, pleading for acknowledgement. Instead, they take a step back, recalibrate, and move forward with even more clarity about who is worthy of their time. By shifting the focus back to his own growth, interests, and personal ambitions, the Sigma male reestablishes a scarcity mindset about himself. His time becomes more valuable than ever, and those who failed to recognize it will feel the sting of being left behind. The beauty of this is that it's not done out of spite. It's done because he simply has better things to do. For the person who thought ignoring him would have any kind of effect, they soon realize they've made a critical misstep. The Sigma doesn't chase after validation. His worth is intrinsic, and once you take him for granted, you're no longer a priority. He'll move on swiftly, leaving you to witness just how scarce his presence truly is. Number 10. He becomes your emotional mirror. When a Sigma male is ignored, he doesn't respond with the same desperation or emotional outbursts that many would expect. Instead, he becomes a mirror, reflecting the exact energy you give him. If you pull away, he'll return the detachment in full force, matching your emotional distance with a quiet, unshakable calm. The difference is, he's much better at it. While you might find yourself struggling with the emptiness of your actions, he'll be at peace, unaffected by your emotional withdrawal. What makes this dynamic so powerful is that he doesn't engage in the same emotional games you might expect. Instead of trying to manipulate or provoke a response, he simply lets the mirror of his own behavior reflect back to you the consequences of your actions. You might start to feel the sting of your own indifference, wondering why he's no longer seeking you out, no longer available, no longer interested. You'll see your own emotional games laid bare in his response, and it will be a sobering reality check. But here's where it gets really interesting. He's mastered the art of emotional detachment. While you may feel the pull to react, to chase him down, or to change the dynamic, he's already moved on with ease. His detachment isn't a facade, it's who he is. He's comfortable in his own skin and doesn't need anyone's approval to feel complete. The emotional mirror he creates is not meant to punish you, but to show you the depth of his emotional independence. And in the end, you'll find yourself trapped in your own reflection, wondering why his emotional absence stings so much more than yours ever could. In the end, a Sigma male isn't defined by how others treat him. He defines himself. Whether ignored, undervalued, or taken for granted, he responds with the kind of emotional intelligence and independence that most can only dream of. His confidence isn't shaken by rejection. It's only refined by it. When you ignore him, you're not creating a power struggle. You're simply revealing how little you understand about the strength of his silence and the depth of his self-awareness. The Sigma doesn't need anyone to validate his existence. He moves through life with a purpose, focusing on his goals and personal growth, leaving behind a trail of people who will eventually realize what they've lost. And by the time they come to their senses, it's too late. He's already long gone, thriving in his own world, unapologetically detached from the drama they tried to create. So if you think you can ignore a Sigma and somehow make him chase you, think again. Because when a Sigma male is done with you, it's not about revenge or bitterness. It's simply about him choosing himself over everything else. The void you feel when he's gone isn't a punishment, but a reminder of what it means to be truly valued. And in the end, it's that very absence, that indifference, that makes the Sigma male one of the most powerful and mysterious forces in any room. If you found this insight into the Sigma male fascinating, don't miss out on more. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated with content that dives deep into the minds of those who truly stand apart. Like this video if you found yourself nodding along, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Got thoughts or experiences to share? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your take. Let's keep the conversation going and explore what makes the Sigma male one of the most intriguing personalities around.